size print shop in next door, and those two volunteer occasionally, and we have 2 or 3 others that volunteer, and so they worked yesterday and just about wore me out. I'm going to, we're not changing course tonight, but I'm giving you the foundation because I've decided that we are, since we had kind of leaned toward starting with Genesis 1, giving chapters 1 through 11 our worldview, we've looked at that. So we'll continue with that. Then, once we figure our worldview in Genesis 1 through 11, then I hope to come back and, look at how science, false science, contradicts our biblical worldview, and then we will look at some of the things that I had mentioned. If our worldview is correct, and we've got our worldview like the airplane that we imagined, we've got our overall view of the Bible, then we will come down and look at the specifics. If the Bible is accurate, then what about carbon-14? What about, the atmosphere, and what about the ocean? Can we look at the ocean and see how old the earth is? Can we look at the atmosphere and see if the biblical worldview is correct, or if the evolutionary worldview is correct? But as I was thinking this week, and some of this I have covered in the past, where do we get our worldview? Now, I'm going to say a couple of things that some of our members, if they're watching, won't like. Some of our members, if they watch it later, probably won't like. But everything I've got in the notes has been proven, verified, backed up. Yeah, the nursery is, it's just to your right, first door. And she can open the curtains and see everything going on, and you'll have the speakers on in the nursery so she can hear. It's not quite as good as being here, but second best thing. So where do we get it, and how? Once we know where the secular worldview comes from, then we can begin taking steps, hopefully, to redirect, especially our young people, to redirect their worldview. When we think about worldview, nobody is born with a worldview. It's like nobody is born hating. Every baby is born purely innocent. And yet we see so much hatred. Where do they learn to hate? That's part of their worldview, and they get that from some of the same places. The first place that our worldview begins to form is in the home. When you're born, well, I just thought of several exceptions. When you're born, the first people you should know and interact with are your mom, and then hopefully your dad will fit in there somewhere. When you're born, you've already heard your mom's voice for 9 months. You already know your mom's voice. And then if mother nurses you, there is a bond, and much of the worldview starts very, very young. And I put down, and I remember when I drove a school bus years ago, I picked up a kid one morning. He was about 6 years old, I'm guessing. And he got on the bus, and I told him to sit down. He cussed me out with words that I don't think sailors knew some of the words. This kid cussed at me. So that was an immediate write-up, took him to the office. The next morning, his dad was at the bus stop, and his dad climbed up on the bus and cussed me out worse than his son had cussed me out. And it's like, I wonder where the kid learned those words. I bet he learned them from his dad. The kid had already learned expletives that shocked me at 6 years old because that's what his dad used. You grow up in a home and smoking isn't as big of a thing now as it was years ago. But parents, and I grew up around, not my parents, my dad never smoked his entire life, but most of my other relatives did. And if their kid picked up their cigarettes and was playing with them, kid got in big, big trouble. Wait a minute, where did he learn cigarettes? From mommy and daddy. So, he's learning. Same thing with drinking. If mom and dad drink, what's a little kid going to do? He's going to think drinking is fine. So, kids begin to learn, and you can tell them all you want to, but they will learn what they see and hear more than what you tell them. So many of them grow up and their first introduction to a worldview is from mom and dad. Now, it's interesting. In the Bible, God gave the responsibility of training up a child in the way he should go to the public school system. Nah. God gave the responsibility of training up a child to the mom and dad. And I've said this, one of the biggest mistakes we ever made was when we turned our kids over to the state and said, you trained them, and we took it away from mom and dad, and now it's gotten to the point where kids are no longer being taught, they're being brainwashed. Number two, many kids get their worldview from church. The church ought to be the center of a Christian worldview. Unfortunately, many churches have gone the way of secularism. They've gone the way of a worldly worldview. I mentioned the other night when we were first wanting to build the Creation Museum, it was going to be south of here, and they had looked at the land, made an offer on the land, and churches gave us more resistance than anybody else. Churches showed up at the county zoning meeting and called us a cult. Churches called us worse names than some of the secular people called us. They had bought into the secular worldview, and they accused us of, if we build that Creation Museum, they'll kidnap your kids, and, they'll kill your kids in sacrifice. But it was churches that gave us most of our resistance at that time. But even if a church is perfect, let's say a church is got the perfect training, perfect Sunday school, perfect teachers, how long do we get a kid at church on average? If you count Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, maybe Sunday night, we get them for 1 to 2 hours, maybe 3 if we're, really blessed. How many hours does the public school get them? What is it, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 or 10 months out of the year? And it's like, it's the church's fault my kid believed evolution. We only get them for 1 or 2 hours. But the school gets them for 40, 50 hours a week for, I don't know, many, many, many weeks out of the year. Nowadays, more kids spend more time on their iPhone, their iPad, in front of a TV or something, rather than studying the Bible, Christian books, and obtaining a Christian worldview. One of my peeves, and our people already know this, when a kid comes in church, first thing he does is sits down, zones out the song leader, zones out the preacher. Let's see what I've got on here. He zones everything out and spends the next 20, 30 minutes playing Star Wars and everything else on his phone. I threatened, y'all may remember this, I threatened a few months ago to buy one of those scramblers, put it up back here, and when you walk in, your phone goes dead. But we do have a couple of people that are on call, hospitals, and so they wouldn't be able to get it. But that really annoys me that they can't sit for 30 to 40 minutes without playing Star Wars and whatever else on their phones. That really bugs me. But it's the church's fault that my kid turned out rotten. Oh, boy. Anyway, churches are supposed to be where we don't form their biblical worldview. We only got 2 hours a week, but we can at least help form their biblical worldview. Number 3 is they get most of their worldview from public schools. Now, I forgot to take my mouth medicine. I have a condition called dry mouth, and when my mouth gets dry, I can barely talk. So they keep praying for my mouth to dry up, one of those things. When I grew up, and I got a thing the other day, my high school, we're fixing to have our 55th anniversary of graduation. 55 years. But when I grew up, we started every morning with reading the Bible, prayer, pledge of allegiance to the flag. Every morning we read the Bible, we had prayer, and we said the Pledge of Allegiance. Some of us still think it's that way. I don't, because I drove a public school bus. But it ain't that way anymore. It's not that way. Public schools have stopped teaching, and if I had time, I could prove this with multiple examples. And now they have become brainwashing centers. I remember when I drove a bus, trying to think what school I drove out of. But I drove out of one school, and I had to go in one day for something. And I was talking to one of the teachers, and it's like, oh, what grade is this student in? Oh, we don't do grades anymore. It's like, oh, okay. Well, when I was in high school, we had the college prep classes. They were the advanced classes. So I said, which class is the advanced class? Oh, we don't have advanced classes anymore. We don't. No, because the kids that couldn't make it to the advanced class felt stupid because they couldn't make it in the advanced class. So now everybody's equal. We don't do A, B's, and C's. They did away with that. Now give stickers. Oh, you're a cat. Oh, boy, and I just thought, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. Bible was outlawed years ago. Prayer was outlawed years ago. Now even some places have outlawed the pledge of allegiance to the flag. Nowadays, a kid can have a sex change and mom and dad not even know about it until after the fact. But there are some Christian teachers, there may be one or two, but even those one or two are not allowed to teach the Bible. Even those one or two good teachers are not allowed to read the Bible and discuss the Bible. You can have a sex change, but you can't hear about God. You can have a boy who thinks it's a girl, but you can't tell him what the Bible says. That's what's going on. They're told that there are no boys and girls. We're all just whatever you think you are. It's funny, I was at the gym this morning, and one of the men that I've gotten to know and a little bit, I don't know what got him started. I don't know. I said, "Good morning, how are you?" And it went from there. He said, "Tell you what, our nation's going to the dogs." It's like, well, yeah. He said, "You don't have to be a genius to know a boy from a girl. All you got to do is look, and you can tell a boy from a girl without science and without, and I mean, he just kept going and going, and then, it's like, I agree with you. The idea that I could be a girl just because I think I am, oh, that would be so wonderful. We have a sick society. That's what our public schools are teaching. Well, my public school doesn't. Do you know these school teachers have to go through training, teacher training, to learn how to lie to parents so that you can't find out what they're teaching? The great eye-opener, if anything good came out of COVID, it's when parents, children were, FaceTime or whatever with school, and parents got to actually see and hear what was being taught straight from the horse's mouth, and it opened up a lot of parents' eyes. Homeschooling now is growing faster than anything. Charter schools are growing. Christian schools are growing. Because the public school is not the public school that I went to school with. Biggest thing we had to worry about in school was getting caught chewing gum. That was the biggest thing we had to worry about. Now you got to have metal detectors. You got to worry about kids bringing machine guns in. You got to worry about kids bringing drugs in. And even that occasional teacher oftentimes has been so limited that she really can't teach what she thinks and what she wants. In public school, peer pressure is unbelievable. If I fall, you're going to catch me, right? Hey, Johnny, why don't you try one of these red balls? No, thank you. Oh, come on, are you a sissy? You're a yellow chicken sissy. Now, come on, try one. No. And then it's like, hey, everybody, he's a sissy. He's afraid, and peer pressure comes down like a ton of brick, and a lot of students give in. Not because they want to get high, they don't want the peer pressure that they have to put up with if they don't do it. And there are many things, books that we read. I remember Dr. Gil Terrell. Did you ever know Dr. Terrell? He's been dead now for many years, died very young. He had like 4 or 5 PhDs, 6 or 8 master's degrees. Brilliant man. But he could talk on your kid's level and they would understand it. Brilliant man. But he would have a display, usually set up across the front, and he would have a whole long stack of children's books that children read in school, at home, and he picked up one of them and he opened it up, and he read the very first line. The Bible is a lie. Pick up another book, open it up. First line, the Bible is a lie. Pick up another book, open it up. First line, the Bible is a lie. What was it that every book started out, the Bible is a lie? What was it that's not what was written in the book, but that's what it meant when he read it. Anybody want to guess what it was? I know you know. It's because you've heard him a dozen times. Do what? I'm sorry? No, that wasn't it. Millions and millions of years ago, and when they start out millions and millions of years ago, they're saying in the very first line, the Bible is a lie. Because there are no millions and millions of years ago. So when they say millions and millions of years ago, they're saying right up front, the Bible is a lie, because the Bible only gives us about 6,000 or a little over 6,000. Nowadays, kids are infatuated with these alien books, alien games on their phone, alien this, alien that. What their books are actually saying is the Bible is a lie. Several years ago, when I was pastoring up in Ohio, I had a mom call me one day, and her son attended our church, but she didn't yet. She called me one day and she said, "Are you familiar with this, I can't remember the name of it, Dungeons and Dragons, maybe?" And I said, "I've heard of it, but I really don't know anything about it." She said, "Well, my son has really gotten into that, and I don't know anything about it." She said, "Would you mind doing some research and tell me if I should allow him to play it or not?" I only read a couple of pages, and that was enough for me. I called her back and I said, throw that book away, burn it, bury it. It's full of witchcraft. It's full of, and it was just a game on their phone. Just a game. But I said, that thing is so full of witchcraft and seances, and it's so full of Ouija boards and everything else. I said, burn that thing. We have to be careful what books we read. Now, I get some medical journals I like to read, but even there I have to be careful because it'll say, you know, that this organ was left over from millions of years of evolution. And those are medical journals. Television. Is it okay to man and woman to come together before they're married? If you watch TV, it is. Everybody's doing it on TV. That's why we quit watching almost every channel. And what really made us switch to a whole nother channel or another company was when men are kissing men in a passionate form. You have to be careful because when kids are watching TV, they're forming a world view. They're forming that based on what they see. Friends. Who do you hang around with? Who do your kids hang around with? When we were in Texas, we lived on a cul-de-sac. There was only 5 houses. I think there were 5 houses. We were the one right in the middle. On our right side was, I don't even remember who lived there, but on the next house over, there was an elderly lady who babysat her grandson. Well, you know, I mean, we knew the grandmother. Nice lady, sweet, lovable lady, clean lady, religious lady. So we let our kids play with her grandkids. Until one day, one of our boys came in and something happened, and he let out a string of expletives. After he got his mouth washed out with soap, where did you even hear those words? Oh, boy next door, or 2 doors down. Okay, you're not playing with him anymore. If that's the kind of language he uses, to this day, he still can't stand the taste of soap. You know, it's been, 35 years ago. Who do you let your kids hang out with? Well, I don't know who they hang out with. You better, because their friends are helping to form their worldview, which will dominate everything they think and believe for years and years and years to come. Once a worldview is formed, only the grace of God can change it. That's why it's so important to start. Our kids got to where they wouldn't watch TV with me, even when they were little bitty. We would be watching TV and they would do something and I would say, okay, stop. Based on Scripture, what's wrong with what they just did? And it's like, Dad, are you going to interrupt every show? Only when I see something that's not right. If we don't correct their worldview while they're young, don't complain when they get to be teenagers and don't want to go to church, don't want anything to do with religion. You know, they're running around with a bad crowd. You helped them form their worldview, which now dominates their thinking. So that's why I wanted to bring this out. These are things that are going on every single day. And if we don't know about it, and then we'll start with the biblical worldview next week, Lord willing. If we don't know, I don't understand where my kids are getting this. Well, when was the last time you checked the books they are reading? When was the last time you watched to see what they're watching on TV? By the way, and I'll close. TV was, well, it may have been invented for this, but as Christians, TV was never intended to be a babysitter. Here, kid, here's the remote. Go watch TV. Just get out of my hair. Get out of my way. Go watch TV. Have no idea what they're watching. Same thing with computers. Well, I just told my kid, go play on the computer. Most kids can find more porn in 5 minutes than you and I would find in an hour. You need to know, because every bit of that is helping to form their world view, which affects how they think about life, how they think about marriage, how they think about everything starts with their